you for joining us today. I'm very happy to see all of you here. Today we are here because of the International Day of Disabilities. And since we have various disabilities, we would like to look at different perspectives because each disability has a different experience, yet we want to come together with one voice. So here we have invited our three esteemed panelists. We have Naveed Khan, we have Rajesh Ketkar, and we have Sunil Sahasrabuddhe. I invite the three of you and thank you for giving us the time to join us. Uh, we have voice interpretation happening here. We have subtitles here, closed captions. Those of you who have joined us are hearing. You can hear the information. And we are also live streaming this on Facebook. So let me introduce myself. This is my sign name. My name is Harith. I am a soapstone fellow from Enable India, and I am currently doing a part of my internship with the International Deaf Academy in Hyderabad. Let me introduce the other facilitator here, Misha, right? That's Misha for us. She is the other facilitator. Hello, everyone. Misha here. So many of our friends. Hello to our esteemed guests, our panelists. This is really interesting. This is my sign name. My name is Misha. I am also part of the Soapstone Fellowship Program, and I am here with completing my internship with the International Deaf Academy and Oniki. Is that it? Do I leave, or there's more that you want me to say, Harith? Oh, you want me to share the background and introduce our guests? So, okay. Right now, Harith I would like to introduce our guest. This is Naveed Khan. A short background about him is what I would share with all of you. Hello, Naveed. Welcome to the session. Naveed is from Karnataka, North Karnataka, and he is from an area that is full of greenery, lush green, environment. And then he moved to Mysore. He was part of this training program where there were also other disabilities and a lot of deaf people as well. Um, he has worked with various organizations, and definitely, yes, he has experienced challenges. He's been an engineer and works in the area of technology, a highly skilled individual. And right now, he is working in Hyderabad with Microsoft. He's a senior level person, and I'm so glad you're here, Naveed. I will now take the opportunity to introduce the other panelist, which is Rajesh Ketkar. Rajesh is someone whom we all know from the deaf community. I will take a brief moment to introduce you. Rajesh was born in Maharashtra but lives in Gujarat with his family. He has many years of experience with the deaf community, and himself deaf with an additional disability. Rajesh has worked, he's completed his BSc. He's also working, he's got multiple posts that he has to his credit. He is the project director for Mukbadir Mandal. He's also the director for Orjet Foundation. He's empowering young deaf learners with English literacy, digital literacy, and so much more. I am so glad to see you here, Rajesh. Thank you so much. Rajesh has also received the NCPDP award in 2019, and that is wonderful, wonderful, Rajesh. I hope we will have more to learn from you. And a third panelist that I welcome today amongst us is hello, Sunil. Hello, Sunil. So happy to see you, Sunil. Sunil says thank you. Again, everybody knows Sunil. He is the president of All India Federation of the Deaf, is highly educated, has so many roles that he has you know completed over these years, and uh, he's also done his masters. Uh, we have he's worked with he's also is the co-founder and the CEO of Sinex, and very recently he had the opportunity to meet our honorable president, where he spoke about the significance of sign language accessibility for the deaf community. I'm so glad you have agreed to join us. Sunil say thank you so much. So happy to see you too. So now, I hope everyone's ready and geared up to start the session. The first question that I have is for Naveed. Naveed, can we get the Naveed on to the spotlight, please? Thank you. All right, Naveed, are we ready? Are you ready to receive the questions?
Yes,
All
go
set?
ahead. Yeah.
All right, so here is the question. Uh, so we have a few interesting questions here, and I'm sure everyone's very keen to learn about your experiences. So, background sound off all, please. Can we request everybody, all those who have joined us, to mute yourselves so that we don't have the background sound disturbing the interpreter? Thank you so much. All right. So my question to you, and this question is not only to Naveed, this is also to both our other panelists as well. If we can have them also on screen, the spotlight on them, it would be lovely. Can we have Rajesh and Sunil, the spotlight on them? Can we have them on screen, please? Rajesh here. Rajesh is sharing something. Harit, can you see me? Am I visible to everybody very clearly? Yes, Harit says definitely yes. So I hope we're all ready for the questions. Couple of questions which will go out to everybody. So, and everybody, it can you can add on to your experiences, the different perspectives that you'd like to share. All right. So I would start with Naveed. You have experienced, you know, being disabled. What are the main challenges or the most overpowering challenges that you think come to people with disabilities in society, where they find inclusiveness is not really there?
Okay.
So can we have the interpreter also on screen for everybody to watch?
Right. Um, so what comes to my mind when I think about challenges, uh, the disabilities are not always visible. Some do have disabilities which are very clearly evident and people can see and understand the type of or the nature of disability. While for the other people, it may not be as such. So the first thing that I would like to highlight here is the awareness and the understanding uh, that how do we interact, how what should be done, what should not be done. I can give you a small example. I use a wheelchair for mobility, and I'm very much capable of moving myself around. When I'm with people who are familiar with me, they know that I can drive my own wheelchair and move around. When I probably meet some folks who are not very familiar with me, they may would like to offer help and push me on the wheelchair, but they wouldn't necessarily ask if I can help you out, if you need any help. That is not because they are, being hurtful or anything. That is just because they are unaware or unsure how do we interact. So the awareness is something which is pretty important, irrespective of the nature of the disability it may come. And the other thing that I have faced a lot actually is the accessibility. The accessibility is the biggest hurdle that I feel is must be overcome in case when we talk about diversity and inclusion. Uh, Without the accessibility in place for us, it would be very difficult to go on with our lives, normal day-to-day lives, going to school, college, getting our right to education. When we have completed our education, going into the job, working with the organizations, transportation. There are a lot of aspects to the accessibility. These are the two major things which I feel that uh, must be brought onto spotlight for people to understand and then probably associate themselves appropriately so that they can handle the situation. Um, Disability, and when we talk about inclusivity and diversity, right? This is not about um, having to accommodate. When we talk about diversity and inclusion, it's not about how do we accommodate, or it's not about having pity, right? It's about collaborating with the people. It's about how do we work to make this an empowering society when we work on something, right? It's about empowerment. It's about collaboration. It's not about, you know, uh, having to accommodate somebody. So that is something that I would, when we all talk about inclusivity and diversity. So I would like to put my focus on that. That we have to be we have to be, collaborative rather than accommodative. So that is something when we understand the small things, when we start to pick up these things, when we try to understand why this is happening, probably it will be better for everybody to react and to act appropriately in that situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is so true, Naveed. What you said was right. Awareness is really something that can change everything. I agree with you thoroughly that it's not about pity. Rajesh, what about you? Any thoughts on this? When you look at people with dual disability, for example, you yourself, you are deaf and you also have a mobility issue, right? So, what has been your experience? What do you think? Rajesh, here, I think it's the same challenge, but there is one little difference. So when me being deaf and my deafness is more prominent than the other. So let me share a story here. Uh, there was a so during the BSc exam in Bombay, right? Um I had to sit for the exam, and I had mentioned that I was deaf. When they looked at me, they didn't know that I was deaf. They just sent me out to the exam and they sent me to the third floor. And for me, going to the third floor was a challenge because it is difficult, right? How do so these little things that they need to keep in mind, that society needs to keep in mind, the challenges that we would face. Again, in school, when you have a deaf person, a deaf student with an additional disability, this is something that people need to understand. They should not just consider that there will be only one disability. There could be people with multiple disabilities. And what are we supposed to do about that? Also, when you see that uh, now things are so much easier, with the online booking and everything. Earlier we had to go to the ticket counter to get the tickets, and they would start speaking, and we would tell them that we are deaf, and they would just shun us off, tell us that you're disabled, you can't hear. How can you not hear? And they would concentrate on me not being able to walk normally. So that was the prominent disability for everyone, and that became my biggest challenge. So the government needs to understand these things. Please, all those who have their mic open. Please mute it. Please mute it because it is disturbing the interpreter. Thank you very much. So I apologize for disturbing the panel. Also, when we go for our hearing tests, right? That again, the testing is done on the third floor at the hospital. They are not giving us accessibility at the hospital. Can you imagine that? So these are basic things that people need to keep in mind when they're working with, people with disabilities, and it's a vicious circle. So, Harith here, yes, absolutely, you're right. So people think that, uh, it's not a big problem. So when Rajesh here again, we have to get the certificates of disability, all these important documents, and it becomes difficult. Also, what I need to add here with the card, with my own, what do I do? I have to give it to to someone else to go and access the money because I cannot climb to, next level floor. Becomes so difficult. I have to give my password. So now things are so much easier because we've got these online payment options. Earlier, it used to be so worrisome for me because I would have to give my card to someone, give my password, and then ask them to withdraw the money. Luckily for me, I've always had people who were very, honest with me. So it was not so much of a problem. Sunil says, yes, that's absolutely right. So we are asking one of the panelists to probably walk out, not walk out, but probably close no, we will ask our coordinators to move one of the panelists because only three or four people on the screen can be shown on Facebook and YouTube. So that is that there is a technical snag. So I'm sorry about that. We'll continue to ask you questions and spotlight you accordingly. Now, Sunil, yes. I'll say something really shortly. Sunil is asking, do you want me to you want to ask me the same question or another one? So I will add something to the previous experience, what Naveed mentioned, that there are two perspectives of towards disability. One is the way, the disability that you can notice, that you can see, and the other's the invisible disability, right? And that really does become a problem. So again, I feel when you have this I live in Bombay, right? Whenever I try to board the disability compartment in the local trains, people ask me to leave because they can't see that I am disabled, right? And the other thing that I want to say here is when you talk about awareness not being there, Rajesh's story, you see that yes, definitely he has a physical disability, but when he's just sitting here and we can't see his legs, it again becomes an invisible disability, right? But when we talk about awareness, what do people really think when we are talking about awareness? When we talk about accessibility, we think about when we talk about accessibility, I think when you look at disability, the word disability, when you give accessibility and more accessibility, the disability will reduce. But if you give less accessibility, the disability or the impact of disability is higher. So when you talk about accessibility, I think it's important to get rid of that disability, right? So awareness has a very strong relationship between disability, the ability to do something, and the inability to do because of the disability. So we cannot really take that off because right now we don't have accessibility, we don't have awareness. So the disability will remain where it is, right? It won't go away. But when we have more awareness, we will have more accessibility, automatically the disability will reduce and we will all be at an equal standing. So awareness is really important. This was my little bit that I wanted to add. That is so lovely, Harith says. Now I will move on to my co-facilitator, Misha, who will take the session ahead. Can we have can we have the spotlight on Misha, please? Thank you. All right, lovely. So that was an interesting discussion that we had, Rajesh, Sunil, and Naveed. Thank you so much. Uh, we, you grew up being deaf, and maybe one big challenge that you experienced, which really, really impacted you. One, very high level challenge that you experienced because of disability. So Rajesh is asking, would you want me to talk about just the deafness or just the physical movement? Rajesh says, when I was very young, I was not very clear about what was it, but I was always very worried. I hated the idea that I couldn't walk. I was at home. I couldn't go to the washroom. There were so many things that I couldn't do, and that would really, really upset me. And it was really difficult. It was almost like a suffering that I was going through. And when I would meet people also, the deaf people were meeting me, I was not really worried about them. But for me, everything was about, difficulty because of the mobility, going to the washroom while traveling. I couldn't use the washroom. I had to hold myself. I could not relieve myself. And, I had to have a lot of help around me. I needed a lot of assistance. It was definitely not comfortable. I'm so and that was really a big challenge. But now, when I look at the problems that deaf people talk of, I think, oh, yes, I was not thinking about those. So, this has been my experience. So, this one challenge of yours that you talk about mobility. So, I could walk okay, but after the age of 5, my parents didn't realize that they had to take me for the polio shot. And that is where it impacted me. So there was this 50% where I was okay, and then that moment really changed everything for me. Also, I wanted to go and work with the army or with the Air Force. I was very keen to work with the Air Force, and to be honest, I was really silly at that time. I received a letter, a government letter that said that and it was for the deaf, yeah, and a vacancy for the deaf. At that time, we didn't have interpreters. So I had my cousin sister who could sign well, knew sign language. That time, we didn't have professional interpreters. So I went and they looked at me and they said, okay, multiple disabilities. And that person spoke and he said, how would you really run around? And then they rejected my application. Even the government was not aware about what we can do and cannot do, right? So you think so that they said you will not get to work only in the city. You will be posted in different locations. So that is where I realized that I was being silly or not realizing what is possible and what's not possible. And for me also, my teacher told me that if you want to go, if so, I wanted to get an opportunity in the public sector, and also I was also not very good with my education. So people around me would tell me, traveling is going to be difficult. You don't have a means to travel. You don't have those special bicycles. You might as well sit at home and do tailoring. And the others around me would go for government jobs. And I also thought that, working from home doing tailoring was fine. But later on, I realized that, that was not the way to look at things. I had to look at things from a, wider perspective. Earlier, I didn't know these things. So for me, it was, oh, I can't walk, I can't do anything. I have to sit at home. Whatever I have to do from home. Your brother is deaf as well. Rajesh says, my whole family is deaf. My entire family is deaf. So that's Misha says, oh wow, that is
Yeah.
wonderful. Sunil,
Athiya,
yes, we will change the interpreter. Yes,
yeah.
thank you, Neeta.
Yeah, Sunil says, well, you don't have to worry that, you're deaf, but we are more worried about, being unable to walk. So similarly, I'm from a deaf family. So I know to sign well. So my communication is good within the family and everything. But you have a deaf family as well, right? But I've got many people who come back and say, oh God, your entire family is deaf. Oh my God, What a play of God. My God. If there is one person in the family who's disabled, that's fine. But the entire family being disabled, that's like a huge thing for people. And it's looked at like, it's something of a sin that we've all done. And generally, what happens is I have been, dependent to see what my parents' experiences have been being disabled, right? So, but my parents have also said that they have had a lot of challenges. So, I have grown up knowing, or understanding those challenges that my parents faced. But they were born when? In the 1950s, right? And I was born in the 70s and 80s. So things would have changed. And at that time, actually, the education did change. In those days, in my parents' days, the school was only available till the fourth grade. But that changed in my time. But the biggest challenge that I faced was accessibility to communication and language. So when I studied in a hearing school from class 2 till my MEd, I did not have an interpreter at all. Right. Now you can see interpreters, and even at that point in time, some interpreters were there. Uh, the interpreters would be worried, oh my God, interpreting for Sunil. I can't do it because he's going to really catch hold of my mistakes. He's really good with English, so his language is good. So interpreters wouldn't come to interpret for me. So what I really want to say is, it was not a comfortable journey for me, but when I first started to teach, the ISL in NIHH, that first time I saw that, there was a deaf teacher there, right? And everybody, all of the students there, including me at that point in time, we were so comfortable, sitting in that class and learning because we were deaf and he was signing. And when I went to the UK as well, we had an interpreter in the class. So I was learning in a really comfortable pace. I I know while growing up, there was a lot of difficulties my parents also faced, and I did as well for education. Misha says, well, yeah, so what is that one biggest challenge that hit you hard? Sunil says, well, that's a really good question. My family said, when the hearing people look at us outside, when as a family we are there and we're signing at each other, people would laugh at us. What are you moving your hands like that in a really animated way? Right? So my parents said, okay, when we go out, no, please just don't communicate in sign language. Just be quiet, mum. Let's just go about our work and come back. So I used to, really talk to my brother, have conversations and, share jokes and all of this. People wouldn't understand what we are doing. It just looked as if we're really having some gestures or animated something which was not, understood by people. So they would laugh. Say, for example, we don't laugh at people when they are communicating in their own language, right? So it's like that. But that, I think, was the biggest thing that, hit me hard as a negative thing that stays on with me. So Misha says, yeah, it's more like, feeling ashamed of using your own language outside. Isn't that right? Yeah, Sunil says, that's right, but if my parents had said, that's all right, it doesn't matter. But my parents were feeling embarrassed more than us. So I think I don't have a problem being, deaf. I find it really positive, being deaf. But then I think it was a little bit of influence from my parents as well as because of their challenges that they faced. Now, looking back, yeah, it was a very different scenario to today. Today is much better, I must say. So Misha says, yeah, even actually, my sister and I both are deaf, right? Yeah, we don't think deafness is a negative thing, but yeah, the hearing people, my family also sometimes, feel that way. Sunil says, the acceptance is most important of the disability. Even parents' acceptance of their child if they are disabled, that makes a lot of difference. Okay, great. Misha says, can we have Navid also being spotlighted? So Naveed, do you want to share something? Can we
Um,
have the interpreter spotlighted as well, please?
right. I would definitely agree with Rajesh and Sunil what they have
Just a
said.
minute, Naveed. Sorry, the interpreter is not yet spotlighted. Can we have Rajesh removed from spotlight because we can only have four on screen? Um, can the coordinator? Yeah, let's just give some time to the coordinator, please. I think she's trying to figure this out. Amisha says, can we have Rajesh and Sunil off the spotlight? All right, great. So, Navid, I have a question for you. What, in your experience, what was the biggest challenge that you faced, like what other panelists have shared?
Right. I definitely agree with both of the panelists. I actually have experienced similar experiences in my life. For example, I was homeschooled. The reason I was homeschooled was because the school that was in my town was not accessible. I did go to school initially for I think first grade or maybe upper KG or something. I don't remember that much. But then since it was not accessible to me, I was mostly homeschooled. I always wanted to be a pilot. I had that dream that one day when I grow up, I would want to be a pilot. In fact, when I grew up and I had the opportunity, I met people from the flying community. I created connections and I had some trainings, of flying, learning about flying. But then when it came to the commercial flying, right, people have to pass certain medical exams, and I was not eligible. It was definitely a heartbreaking thing for me. I mean, probably aware of this, but still there was some inner child of me that always wanted to be in command of an aircraft, not necessarily a huge one, a small aircraft, or fly around, be free and independent, just how the birds, are independent and they fly around. But I had to just, pursue that adventure of flying as a hobby and not pursue it as a profession. um, then when I started working, I got into corporate world. I faced different challenges. Some of the organizations were not equipped with accessibility, and therefore even though I qualified, I was unable to enroll. Some of the organizations where I did get a job at, they did not had enough accessibility, where they did built on later. For example, one of the organization where I was working, they didn't have accessible restrooms. So it was a shock for me when I went there, and I spoke with the administrative department, and for me they modified the restroom so that it was accessible. They did that, and I'm very glad that they did that. But what I'm trying to say is that though the awareness is there, though we talk about the accessibility, it is not everywhere. So it is still at a very infancy level. We have to grow a lot in this regard. And when we talk about the self awareness and acceptance of our own disability, it's a very big challenge. I agree with Sonil when he shared his experience about going out with his family and people looking at them, staring at them. Okay, what's going on? And they had their parents. His parents said, like, you know what, let's try to not communicate much. I do see that happening a lot, and that is because of acceptance. And it's not only the people with hearing challenges, even with the people who have other challenges. Acceptance is something that is a very big hurdle. If somebody has accepted that this is something that they have to live with, and if somebody who knows how to conquer that, then there is no stopping. You can always achieve more and more once you know that this is something that you are in total control of. And what Sunil said about the interpreter in the college, in the school, I have seen that firsthand. In fact, I have learned a bit of sign language with Harith and a couple of other people who were there. I worked with them and I learned ISL. And in my class, I was trying to interpret for the people who had hearing challenge. When I went there in the first time in my college, right, I see that the professors and the teachers, they come, they talk, and they write on the board, and they go away. For the people who are able to hear, they note down, they understand. But for the people who cannot, who are unable to understand what they're saying because of their hearing challenge, they sit there like they are watching a TV with no audio. And that was actually heartbreaking. I went and spoke with the head of the department, and we had an interaction, and I brought this up as a concern. The At the time, we didn't had anybody who knew the proper sign language to teach the teachers, right? So obviously I was a student. I wasn't going to teach the teachers how to interpret, because I myself didn't knew that. Then I worked with few of the people and I learned with the alphabets A, B, C, D. And then slowly from there onwards, I learned how to say few things, and then I started helping interpret. Most of the time, when I used to do that, I used to miss out on my own notes, but that's okay. I was getting the notes from other people. But I wanted my friends who were there to understand, what is being said. And I can tell you this, that after graduation, I remember I was called by the college back, and they asked me for suggestions. What suggestions do you give to have these interpretations done properly in a professional manner? So we gave some classes to the teachers. I was there and I was teaching some of the teachers how to do basic science. Then this is something that is a major concern when we talk about inclusivity. We need to make sure that what is being said is understood by everybody. Not necessarily it is a sign language. If I am from Karnataka, I know the local dialect, I speak Kannada. There could be another person from a different state, and that person might not know Kannada. So if I talk to my friend in a dialect that he doesn't understand, we have to be inclusive in that manner also. We should come and discuss and talk in a language, whether it is a verbal or non-verbal, so that every participant understands what is being said. So the inclusivity is not limited to disability. Inclusivity is something that has to be taken care of regardless of their ability, disability, challenges, no challenges. It is something that we should not look at as a limitation, but something that can diversify us. And there are certain challenges that Rajesh also talked about, like going to the ATM and not being able to withdraw the money because it is inaccessible. I have been through that. The reason for this is that slowly we are becoming, we are moving towards an infrastructure where it is accessible, but it is limited to very top tier cities. It is not everywhere across the country. We have the Rights of People with Disability Act 2016, which has included a lot of disabilities. Earlier it was seven, I guess. Now it is 21 that they have recognized, and they're increasing that. But the problem here is that when these decisions are made, what has to be done to make people from other communities inclusive? The people who are doing this, they don't you know allow us or our opinions to be heard. If you want to make something, then I think I am the right person. If I'm going to use that, you should ask me what is required. Similarly, if Rajesh or Sunil is supposed to be using some of the accessible infrastructure, then I guess the people from those challenges should be heard. So we should be involved in the decision making. As long as we are involved in the decision making, we know from our own life experiences what are required. There are lifts where, for example, metro, if I go to a metro, I have had this experience. I wanted to try out metro for the first time in India. There was a lift where I could, use to go to the platform. But there are steps to go to the lift. How do I access that? There are various examples across. We are slowly moving towards um, probably a better future where, we can have all the people inclusive, accessible environment, right to education, job, and everything. But it's a bit far away than what we are right now, and I really hope that day comes very soon for all of us.
Great. Thank you so much for what you said. And I completely agree with all the points that you mentioned. What I just want to pick from what you said is, the accessibility to the toilet was missing in your organization. But good that your management, really accepted without giving any excuses or, delaying the entire thing. They gave you accessibility immediately instead of you having to, knock on their doors time and again. I think that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I do appreciate that a lot. That is something commendable, and I would like to, if they are, I don't know if they have joined here, but I have like invited them for that. I really appreciate what they have done, and I believe that it should have been there in the first place, but nevertheless.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Naveed. Well, so I'll now call over Harith to take over. Okay, great. So I'd like to now have Sunil and Rajesh again. Spotlighted, please. Right. Thank you. So I was looking at what was being discussed earlier. You just told about how you lost opportunities of government jobs because awareness at that point in time was much lesser. But do you think that times have changed and today the awareness has increased within the deaf community itself, or what do you feel? So Rajesh says, this is just my view, and don't take it as something really factual, but this is my view. When I look at accessibility back then and now, not accessibility, sorry, awareness back then and now, it is different, right? At that point in time, sign language was not really recognized and used much by everybody. At that point in time, hearing and the deaf community were not equal. There was inequality. But now I think that inequality gap has reduced now. And there is a lot of awareness and usage of ISL now. So, all these different organizations, you have ISH, you have MBM, and you have so many different HAM also, you know, sharing videos in sign language. So there is a lot of awareness. But awareness in the hearing community is still a long way to go. The deaf awareness in deaf community is there, but in the hearing community, it's much lesser because they still feel that, sign language is more like, just gestures, and they can just use these regular gestures like, did you have water? Please sit down. And, all of that. But that it's just not limited to gestures. Sign language is a complete language. You can talk anything. You can talk about cricket. You can talk about a lot of things, politics and everything. So that awareness is missing, and that's a problem. So there's another thing, when I was teaching in Ishara, uh, Ishara, ISHARA, Ishara Foundation was founded by Shibaji Panda, and Sunil and I were all working there. We were teaching English in Baroda, and we were teaching the deaf people. At that time, we only had way to communicate was through SMS, and all the batches were completely filled, right? And everybody was so interested. They had amazing time learning. This is around in 2012 and 2013 when the interest to learn really decreased, because at that point in time, people were, using the technology of video calling and using sign language. So they didn't want to really learn English and have to, type SMSs. That was a big challenge I saw. I felt really bad because I wanted both of it to go together in like a parallel track, both ISL and English. Now, if you see, simple words like water, people, I'm probably exaggerating, but, people can't understand what that little term means as well. And I've got comments saying, I use technology. I've got all these apps and everything that will help me to communicate. That's okay. But now, what I see, times have changed, is that deaf people are now dependent rather than being independent. They are dependent on either an interpreter or a technology solution. I think we need to come over that. We need to be successful and independent by ourselves, right? Not being dependent. So, Sunil, can I have you? What you had explained, right? You said some interpreters were really worried to interpret for you because of your high levels of language. Do you still feel, that issue now? Well, so if there is no sign language in a classroom, I do request and ask for an interpreter. Some interpreters are still scared to interpret for me. I think that will change. In America, I think it has been there for about 50, 60 years. So people are not scared and they are willing to interpret for any situation. But in India, that is still, in forming stages, I must say. So what Rajesh was just mentioning about, use of English for communication has really reduced, and they're using ISL now more than English. So um, when they have an option, so they are taking just ISL, it's an or option, but it should not be an or, it should be an and. You do this and that. Yeah, fine. You use, English for reading and writing or another language for reading and writing, and you use ISL for communication. But it's a win-win, when you use both. I think when looking back at myself, I am really grateful that I know English as well as, sign language. I think it's a huge benefit and added advantage for me. I think that's what my message will be for the entire deaf community. It should be an and having another language. Because see, sometimes what happens is if there is no interpreter, the interpreter just doesn't turn up. I don't need to be scared. I can just move on. Harit says, yeah, great, thank you. Can I have Navid? Yeah, interpreter change. Thank you, Atya.
So can we have the spotlight on Naveed, please? All right, lovely. I've seen you, with in college, Naveed. Sorry, can we have, yes. All right, the interpreters here. So Naveed, for you, I remember, in college, you were a very different person then. You were not just, you were much more than, you know, being there. You were mostly with the deaf community, the deaf students. You were part of that group always. How did that, happen? What made you feel more connected to the community, deaf community? We would like to know more about that.
Well, actually, that is very true what Harit said, because the people who used to see me and I was trying to sign and sitting on a wheelchair, they used to come and ask me, how many disabilities do you have? And I used to laugh at that. And sometimes I said, I can't hear you, just so that I can properly learn the sign language. So I wanted to learn as much as I can. The whole journey of that started because of what I said earlier was that sitting in the classroom, looking at my fellow friends and students there, and able to understand what is being said. And then at the end of the semester, they are going to be judged in an exam for which they haven't understood anything. And that was very unfair. Uh, and I have experienced a lot of challenges and unfairness in my education because of unable to go to a proper school, get the right education that I wanted. But while sitting in a classroom with the professors, and still if that is a problem, then that is something which was very concerning to me. And then when I started learning the sign language, I was actually fascinated by how Small signs can actually say a lot of words. For example, my name, Naveed, can easily be said by this. And I was so happy with that. And okay, I want to learn more. When I started learning more, then I interacted with a lot of people who were, you know, people with the hearing challenge and the people who were unable to probably speak fluently. I understood their point of view, which was very interesting. And interacting with those people, listening to their stories, understanding where they came from, and the challenges that they are going through. That was very fascinating. And I wanted to help as much as I could. And there was a benefit for me as well. It is not like, very selfless act. It was a benefit for me as well. The two things were there. One thing that I wanted to make friends with them. I wanted to interact with them, to learn about them. And the other thing was that I wanted to sit with them and explain to them the concepts that the teachers are telling. That will be like a revision for me as well. It helps both the people. The more knowledge you share, the more knowledge you gather. It will never go less, right? So that was actually very true in this case. And I am very fortunate to have had that experience and made great friendships. That I still have many friends from the people of hearing challenge community, I really feel that some people have done very good for themselves, and I feel proud about that. I have had help from a lot of people who have taught me the sign language, especially Harith, who has been there. His brother was there, and a lot of other people who were there. I'm very grateful for that and for the opportunity to get involved.
Wow, that is beautiful. Absolutely. Not just me, yeah, but there were so many of us over there who, they had this opportunity to be with you. And I'm really happy. And this was really moving. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now I will ask Misha to take over and continue with the session. Great. So the last question here, Sunil, Rajesh, Naveed, this is to all of you. And, you know, let's talk about the olden days, the 1990s, right? The times then and the times now. So, do you feel that accessibility today, I mean, have we come a long way, or could you repeat the question, please? Okay, okay. Yeah, sorry, yes, I'll repeat the question. So, my question here is, um, during the 1990s, let's compare the 1990s and today, the 2024, the accessibility, the experiences. Do you think we have come a long way and, we are satisfied with whatever we have, or there is more to go? So, Rajesh, here, I feel when you compare the olden days to now, I think today we are so much better, so much better. We have accessibility, there's technology has increased. We have a better accessibility, physical accessibility to infrastructure, to railways, to metros. The restrooms have become more accessible. I won't say that they're, pathetic, but I will say they are better than what they were. There are challenges. There are challenges, in smaller towns and districts, but in most of the metro cities, things are better. There are times, yes, definitely, when we need to ask for someone to help us when the roads are inaccessible or places are inaccessible. If you need to talk about more, maybe we still have more, 50% more to change, and then we will say that we are 100% there. There's so much. So my experiences in 2010, I traveled to the US. So I've traveled to quite a few places, right? And I think definitely, yes, things are so much better over there in the US. Uh, with moving around, you have everything possible for a person to walk, to move. You have these at these fairs, and you want to try all these monster rides, or these fun night adventure rides. In India, they would, the amusement parks in India, they ask you to move out of the line. You're not allowed to go in and enjoy these adventure rides. But abroad in America, yeah, they would, they have everything in place. They'll set you up, they'll, buckle you up, and you can go enjoy these rides. And I experienced that and I was delighted. I remember that experience and I'm so grateful. Then I went to Hong Kong, I went to another Asian country, and that was not the same experience. They said, sorry, I can't really get in. For the smaller rides that were not very exciting, they let me go. But the ones that were more challenging or more adventurous, they said no. But America, they allowed you. They have the accessibility, they have the infrastructure. But mostly in India, that's not accessible. And I am a citizen of India, right? Now, if you talk about the Ganesh Chaturthi, the festival, I grew up and I want to go and go to the temple. They don't allow me to go to the temple because the uh, at the pandals also they don't allow me to go because I'm supposed to take off my shoes. But the contraption that I use for me helping me to be mobile to move around, I can't take that off because if I take that off, I can't move ahead. But in certain countries, they have that kind of accessibility. So while we say that, people understand accessibility, they understand the challenges, but they don't always have the answers that we need to have accessibility. I want to go and experience, what it is to be at a place of prayer. I want to experience that divinity, right? So you've not experienced any temple? So I have in Bangalore, the Hare Krishna temple. Uh, the Hare Krishna. I spoke for a very long time. Then they arranged for one a mobile, kind of a transport. They had to put me onto a chair and they had to buckle me up. Almost felt like I was being cuffed. So that was not very comfortable. They were plastic socks that I was supposed to use. And so it was not a very comfortable experience for me. And it felt really disappointing. There should be accessibility for any person who with disability, whether I am wearing an aid to help me move around. They should, why are they looking at what I'm wearing for mobility? Look at me as a person, right? My inner feeling, that is more important. Misha here, have you raised this with the authorities to give you accessibility? Well, one voice will not make a difference, right, Rajesh? Here, it has to be multiple voices that are talking about this and asking for accessibility. Misha, here, but again, RPWD gives this, talks about the accessibility. Rajesh says, well, let's see, let us try it. Maybe if I have more people supporting me for this, definitely yes. Misha says, yes, maybe we can, create a forum where we talk about these challenges and reach out to the authorities to consider this. Sunil, Sunil here, yeah, this is interesting. What Rajesh said that, a lot of times he doesn't get accessibility, but abroad he does get. Now, when you talk about 1990 to 2024, big change, definitely, yes, things have gotten better. But and a big thank you to the RPWD Act. If that was not, if the act was not in place, a lot of things would not have happened because we did ratify the UNCRPD, right? That was the beginning of bringing change, building the demand to have accessibility. But what's really surprising, with what Rajesh also shared when he went to the US, things were more accessible. I also have friends in the US and they give me this beautiful stories of accessibility, where, someone lands at a place and the police there, they sign themselves. There's accessibility at every nook and corner. So my friends in America, they say that, America is so much better with all the accessibility and it's absolutely brilliant. And those people say, so I tell them that, and those guys come back saying, no, no, it's not 100% accessible. So we have, so because we don't have those opportunities, what they have, we feel, wow, they are 100%. But when they look at it themselves, they realize that there's still more to go. They still need access for everything. They're not still 100% accessible. They still, they're probably at 99%, and there still are changes that are required. So while we say yes, they have accessibility, everywhere, we think there's always room for change. There's always room for improvement. So let's hope that that also happens for us here. So why do the people in the states say that they don't have complete accessibility? Well, I think what they really look at, what they come back saying is that they do still face challenges, and that's the problem. These are their experiences, their lived experiences. So while we look at it from our perspective, because we don't have so much, we feel, we are asking for more. But they over there, even though they have accessibility, they realize that they're still not 100%, which means they need more. Probably they need, improvement in what they already have access for. Sunil, tell us about what you see has changed over the years from 1990 to 2024. Um, Both of you, in fact, this question goes to you too, Naveed, you and Sunil. And can we have the interpreter on the spotlight on the interpreter, please? And we'll have to take one off. So we'll take the spotlight off Rajesh. And yes, thank you. This is perfect. Okay. So, yes.
Right. I mean, when we look at places abroad, I have been to Middle East. I was there for a quite long time, more than a decade. And I, when throughout my time over there, I never felt that I was somewhat disabled. Obviously, there were certain places where I couldn't, but 90% or at least 85% of the places were accessible to me. I was able to go to the market, do the daily chores, get milk, get tea powder if I want on my own. I don't need anybody to help with that. But here I can't. But now the technology here has improved. We can order something online, comes to me within couple of minutes, right? But then still, the people abroad, they are at a stage where we are unable to reach at a very short time. The reason is the awareness. No matter how much accessibility you bring on to the table, as long as you are not aware, with the awareness everywhere, you cannot. For example, what Rajesh was saying, that the places of worship were not accessible. Or even if they are accessible, probably when we go there, we are not that much, easily allowed in or whatever. Why is that? Is it because there are no ramps? Is it because we need something special? No, it is because of awareness. When we have awareness, when people have awareness, and when people don't look at disability as a stigma, as a problem, when they look at this as an opportunity to get more people involved, as a diversification of the community, only then the people in power will act. Only then the things will change. Just talking about things to change, and different acts being sent as a laws, and improvement has been done. Yes, they are being done at a slower pace, not everywhere. Agreed, it will take time. Yes, we have a very big country compared to the other countries. We have a lot of people in India, then we have people abroad. There's a lot of differences. It's not with apple and oranges that we just can compare. But still, if you think about it, what I feel right now, we need more is awareness. The more people start demanding, we need this, this is our basic right, the more easily it will be made accessible to us. We have to come out and talk about it openly. We have to first of all accept. Acceptance must come, then the awareness will come. When the awareness will come, then all this, the ball will start rolling. That is something that we as a community should stand up, because the people who make these laws are the people from our own communities. It is from us, within us. They are not from outside, right? So this is where we have to probably work on. And when we also talk about the act, although the act has been recently, it has come in 2016, I believe, it is still a long way to go. We have to work a lot on that. The places where we say that these are accessible, like metro or train or Indian railways or anything of that sort, they're not 100% accessible, agreed, but they are still better than compared to 1990s. or early 2000s. I can see night and day things have improved, but are we there yet? No, we are not there yet. A very long way for us, and hopefully when we all come together as a community, together when we stand strong. We shouldn't be divided as a community, whether it is people with hearing challenges, or people who have visual challenges, or people who have mobility challenges. It doesn't matter. I am not different from people who can not speak. I'm not different from anybody else, right? We have to have that inclusivity. When we have that, when we stand strong, when we're together, when we believe that we are all one as a countryman, as a fellow human being, then probably then we can push forward and achieve greater things. It will happen. I'm sure it will happen. Might take long, but then it will happen.
Absolutely,
I think there's been
absolutely.
a power
Yes.
cut.
So maybe in the meantime, whatever Naveed said, maybe Sunil, you want to add to that, or you have a different view to that? So yes, Naveed, what you just shared right now, with that's really true. That's absolutely true that we all have to stand together. We all have to work together. But the challenge really is with the other disabilities, when you look at people who are wheelchair users or the blind, the visually impaired, uh, they all, one thing that is in common for all of them is language. One common factor, that is language. With the deaf community, the challenge is that they all use sign language. So because of this, we can't really be part of those, larger conversations where all the other communities talk together. So if we have a space where all communities come together, I'm sure, definitely, yes, we will have a stronger voice because all representatives will be there together. And instead of calling it the disability group, we could call it the ability group. That is the tag that we should work with. And I think, yes, definitely that is possible. I think previous there was also this problem that, people were looking at the communities as being different or separate from each other. If you look at South Korea, uh, I've heard of this, in Japan, that the various disabilities, they all come together with one voice. And the government there is, listening to their demands and is taking into consideration their, what they need because of that one voice, because of that one common factor. I think that is what we need to do as well over here. So,
Yeah, I agree
so
with Sunil, what exactly he said. We need to come on a common platform. We need to come as one. When we do that and when we push for these are basic rights, to be honest. We are not asking for luxury. What Sunil is saying is absolutely true. With the people who have mobility challenge, the people who cannot see, but they can still speak and hear. They can still understand. But the people who cannot, they are in a different world altogether, and they will have a very difficult time to understand what is being said. So for them to have somebody who can interpret in a language they are comfortable is a basic demand. It is not a luxury. We are not asking something which is out of the world. These things that we are asking or what we're talking about, these are basic human rights. For maybe for other people, if they look, okay, you need a ramp. That is extra manpower, material to construct. I understand these accessible things, maybe a hearing aid. It is expensive. A wheelchair, if you go for an electric wheelchair, expensive. So when we talk about accessibility, we need to look at cost effectiveness also. Even if we have the wheelchairs and hearing aids and braille everywhere, but if they're costly, if I cannot afford them, then again we are creating a divide. We are creating divide among the people. So these are basic rights. It should not be inaccessible to us. We're not asking something which is extraordinary. We're asking basic rights. So I agree with what Sunil said.
we'll just change the interpreter. Thank you.
Right. So thank you, Harit says, for the panelists for answering all the questions. And there is one last question now for all three of them. So now you see there are a lot of people talking about technology, AI, all of that is being talked about more commonly now. So can you talk about the benefits? Does it really bring benefit to the table? Can we have Rajesh also, please? Yeah. Yes. Sunil here. So yeah, maybe we need to take one person off. Maybe we can take the interpreter off spotlight. Right. So truly, that's a really good question, about technology, whether it's going to be beneficial or not. So let me talk about me and my view as a deaf person, right? When you ask a hearing person, they had these phones for the first time. Okay, when it was invented, what was happening before there was no phone, right? So for the hearing people, the invention of phone was like a real good boon. But what for the deaf people? It was not a boon. It was difficult because we had to pick up the phone and we could not talk or hear. The the positive thing, the positive invention for deaf people in technology is video calling. But the challenge with that is like what Rajesh said, there is a lot of sign language being used and a less of any spoken or written language, understanding and learning of that. So we have to be really careful and prudent in what choices we make for technology. We shouldn't just be dependent on technology and just look at it as the way forward. We need to have the right balance. Right now we see AI being talked about. Truly, is that a need? Maybe there is a use, but overuse could be an abuse of technology, right? And it could probably turn around as a negative thing for us. Human interactions probably are going to reduce. We are interacting with machines, but human interactions and people, interactions, I think that social behavior was going to change because of it. Rajesh says, yeah, what about technology? In my view, going back to my growing days, my father said, you know, uh, you're very difficult, So times are difficult. I'm sorry. So he said, what was it? It's about, going to the electricity board or to the railway station, ticketing counter and everything. There are huge queues, really long queues. Now, I used to sit right in the side. So my father used to say, okay, what if my father is not there or my brother is not there? How will I stand in these queues? I can't stand for such a long time. So my brother said, no, I'm there. I'll support you. Okay. Then I said, what if parents are not there? Please, don't turn your words and then just let me be and don't help me at that point in time. My brother said, no, no, no. Of course, I'm going to help you. Don't think like that. But now I don't need to go stand in those queues. Technology has empowered me, that I can book tickets online. And then earlier on, what used to happen? We had to, travel long distances to find a phone booth or find a phone in somebody else's house. And the conversation that would go on for a long time over the phone would be just a minute or something when it is given to me, But now with the technology, with video calling, this is amazing. I mean, I have complete information, but now there is a lack of awareness in people. Huh? They keep the phone really close to their faces and mouth, and I can't see their faces and their signs. So that's a bit of a problem. But yeah, technology, I think, has helped. But talking about AI, it is a really good thing that it is coming in, but we shouldn't be completely dependent on it, right? For example, the Google, you have to search, you'll have to look through a lot of information. But then, you've got this AI, ChatGPT kinds, which, gives you a concise information. And then now again, people are using these chat GPT kind of apps, for communication. They just put in whatever they know into that, and then they get an output out of it, and then message that. So we shouldn't actually completely be dependent on AI. Probably just say about 30% or so. That's fine, but not fully. And I also, when I look back in time, how hard we all used to work. Say my father used to probably line up in the queue for about 2 hours. I was also sitting there next to him somewhere in the corner, and I wasn't finding it as a big problem at all. I used to count the number of buses, the autos, how many people were walking past me, and all of that. Now, today, the technology is there, but even for a 5 minute waiting period, I get really upset, right? We all really throw tantrums. But then that's how it's become. Whose problem is it, or whose fault is it? Now, even if the bus is 10 minutes late, or the train is 10 minutes late, or a flight is 10 minutes late, we're all getting really anxious and angry, stressed for that. So, yeah, you do have, both the positives and the negatives in the pocket. Yes, Navid, do you want to say something to this?
Right. I mean, it's a very interesting question. Coming from a technology background, and I work with such technologies as a profession. I feel that every technology has its own set of positives and negatives. And even let's say talk about the mobile phones that we're so much dependent on right now for essential communication. We use that to book our cab, Ola, Uber. We book it, we use to order food on that, right? But at the same time, we can use it for a lot of other things which are not so great. So every technology has both the aspect. But at the same time, if we shun away a technology, saying that, you know what, this is harmful, we're not going to use it, it will impact us going forward. Why? Because the entire world will move on and we will be left behind. And then when we are left behind so far, it will impact our growth. So we need to work with the technology. We definitely need to adopt what the technology is, especially when we talk about AI is everywhere. And probably going forward, I don't know where there will be another version of us sitting and talking. Who knows? But when I think about technology, I want the technology to work for us. I don't want to work for the technology. That is what I think about the technology, right? For example, when we talk about robotics, when you talk about AI, everybody's so afraid right now in the market. Everybody's so afraid, will my job go away 5 years later? Some robot is doing my work, or some AI computer program is going to do my work. What am I going to do then? Should I learn something else? What should I do? So it's a lot of scare. People are scared everywhere. But you don't have to be scared. We have to adopt, we have to learn, we have to ensure that the AI works for us to help us in our life, to make our life better. It should not be there to replace us. Humans can never be replaced by technology, no matter how advanced the technology is, because we are the ones who, thought about it, we conceptualized it, we designed it, we are the ones who made it to reality. So I feel that there will be an impact. Of course, there will be an impact, but we should not get scared from it. We should not avoid it, but instead we should adapt to it. We should learn about it, and we should ensure that we are up with the technology, up with the world. We should not be cast out because we don't know certain things. And somebody was talking earlier about not paying much attention to the language such as English, and getting on a video call and being able to communicate. Yes, it is easy. Technology has made it easy, but learning the language is essential. How will you communicate without a technology if there's a power cut or anything of that sort? So all these things are basic. It is very important for us to learn. And then while learning all that, we should work with the technology, go along with it. Earlier, maybe, in our parents' time, for them what we are doing now is magic. My grandpas, if they were alive, they would see, you can see somebody on a screen and you can talk to the person. It is a magic, according to them. For us, it is common because this is something that we have adapted. So every day when there is a new change, every day when new technology comes in, new enhancement, improvements when it will come in, we should learn to adapt to it, and we should make sure whoever is in charge of it must make sure that these are accessible to us. If they're very costly, extremely costly, I cannot afford it. If I cannot afford it, I will lose the opportunity. If I lose the opportunity, I will be left behind. So again, the challenge is that it should not be expensive, because nowadays, if you look at medical equipments, hearing aids are expensive, wheelchairs are expensive. There are a lot of other things which are very expensive. So I mean, we should work in a way that we adopt to it, and then we uh, make sure that it is accessible to all.
So great. Rajesh, I think you wanted to add something. Yeah, he says, yeah. So truly, in the deaf community, since I was really young, I used to go in the cycle. And then I used to, look at these share markets and the stocks where people used to come and gather together. It was like really crowded people, trying to get space in that. It was difficult. No, but now even shares and stocks, you can buy it online. You really don't have to go and stand there in that crowd. That's the technology that has enabled us now. So you can still, and now people can do two jobs. They can have a regular 9 to 5 job and also, do stocks and earn from that. So yeah, like you said, it's got both positives and negatives. Harit says, yeah, linked to what you said, about stocks and all of that. Previously, when they used to sell stocks or shares, they used to use the telephone, right? People use telephones at that place. Yeah. Sunil says, just to add, yeah, so truly, Navid, what you said is amazing, and I agree to it. We shouldn't be left behind. We need to be at par because the world is changing and the technology scenario across the world is changing. And I completely agree. And the second point is, the accessibility tools should be affordable. I know it shouldn't be so expensive, and it shouldn't be a privilege only for the ones that can afford. And for the people who are poor and middle class who can't afford it, it should not be that they are left behind. I agree. And the third point is I know it's just not about the disabled community. I'm talking about even the hearing, the non disabled community, the use of AI and technology. I'm sorry, there's something happening on the screen. All right, please continue. Yeah, so technology, there is awareness about technology. Say, for example, to assist. Technology is for assist for them to assist. It shouldn't be a replacement and an empowering thing, right? So, say for example, I give so much fund, for the technology advancement, they forget that, what was the main aim of technology? The technology was aimed at, assisting. It shouldn't be like a rat race now, oh, I'm doing a better technology than you. And it's just a challenge between the tech companies and the bigwigs, right? So they're saying, driverless cars now. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting for the disabled community who have mobility issues and don't have limbs, maybe that is an assistance for them. But for everybody, if everyone is going to be having driverless cars, I don't think that's really going to be a viable solution, right? What happens to the workforce? What about happens to the jobs that people will lose because of it? So there is so much of money that is going into research of technology, but it's more like a, challenge that people are looking at. So we know about Shahid Kapoor, the movie actor, uh, and there was another actress, I forget her name. He's like, yeah, he marries her because she's an AI bot, actually. And then she turns violent later. It's a nice creative idea for a movie, but it could happen in the future. in a future time, that could probably become a reality. It's more like a wake up call for us that a technology should be an enabler rather than a replacement. I think we should very carefully and wisely use technology. Harit says, wonderful. I think all the points that you have discussed here are so interesting and to the point. So thank you so much. In the audience, now I open the floor for some questions if there are any. So I'll hand you all over to Misha now. Right. I'm sorry, there was a power cut and I'm back now. Sorry, I missed in between. So the floor is open for the audience for any questions. But people, I just want to remind that do not repeat the questions if somebody has already asked it. So be sure of that. And we will take just 5 questions because of time. Okay, so who wants to go first? Can I see some show of hands? All right, so we have Shruti. Shruti, great. Just a minute, Shruti. Can you tell us who your question is for? Okay, Shruti says then this question is for Navid. So we'll have the other panelists off screen, please. Can we have also the interpreter, please? Yeah, Misha is trying to coordinate, saying we'll have Sunil off screen and the interpreter on screen, please. Yeah, I think we're working with technology, so we have to be a little patient. Sunil says, I'm patient. Yes, we're all patiently waiting. No issues. Okay, great. Shruti says, interpreter. Can the interpreter be on screen as well, please? Yeah, great. Perfect. The 4 of us. Yes, Shruti, your question. So I have one question, and the question is, about A, say we've got a positive and a negative. Say, let's take this battery, for instance. So you've got both a positive side and a negative end, right? So we are assuming for the A negative. When we look at the negative side, it's an assumption. Whereas a positive side is you really ask for their opinions, right? So if there is a disability there, you should ask for their lived experiences. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of people asking you questions, right? How many disabled people are there? What is your disability? That's your experience, right? You have had that experience of people asking you questions like that. So I've had a similar experience. When I sign, people say that, or people think that, I am unable to speak because they're assuming, they're not asking me. So in your experience, you have, you use a wheelchair and you also use sign language, right? You've also probably faced where people have assumed a lot of things about you. How did you overcome that problem? I'm sorry, I hope my signing was clear because I'm more of a speech user. I don't use much of ISL, so I hope the interpreter got the signs clearly.
Right. Thank you for the question, Priti. And you're actually right. I have had such scenarios wherein people assume rather than they ask. And again, it goes back to awareness. For example, I think I have talked about me sitting on a wheelchair with people who I'm already known with. They know that I can drive my own wheelchair and I can, move around. But if I'm with people who don't know me much or have met them recently, they may try to help and they come and, push my wheelchair around for me. I don't want that. Then I have to tell them, what, I can handle. Thank you so much. Similar experiences I've had with the different levels of life, whether it is in office or college or school, restaurant, it again comes back to the same problem of awareness. We have to only think about one thing is that when we meet people, we should ask. what sort of help do you require? First of all, do you need help? If yes, what help do you need? When we understand the requirement from the other person, then we can help the person better. I was saying that, we have to ask. Asking or consent is something which is very important. That is in all parts of life, whether we are talking about people with challenges or we're talking about people without challenges. Asking is the first thing that we should do. And when we, ask, we understand. When we understand, we are able to help better. So maybe without going with the proper understanding, we may do something which is not required. We may hurt the person's feelings, and the person may or may not tell us that that person is hurt. So again, it all comes back to awareness. It all comes back to education, empathy. Empathy is something that we should all learn. We should not be sympathetic, but empathetic. We should all practice empathy. When we do that, and probably, we will have better experiences when we talk to different people.
Right. So what Shruti says, but I think the biggest impact is that we need to ask and not assume, because then the impact is lost. Yeah, that's what I think.
Absolutely. Asking consent first step. Yes.
So Shruti is asking us to repeat what you meant about consent.
If you need help, then we should ask, do you need help? Not just go and help. Is a permission, is a consent. Do you need help? Do you want me to help you? Or you're fine on your own? Asking, understanding, and then working, I think that's how we should go about.
I agree. I agree. But what I'm saying is, the impact is not shown because people are assuming constantly and they're not asking. The impact is that, we need to ask. Yeah. I think that way the scene will be clear. Yeah. But
Yeah,
thank you very much. Yeah.
I agree.
I think there is somebody else who has a question. Right. Ravinda, can you come on screen? Okay, so we lost Ravinda. Can we have the next person? Yeah, somebody who has their hand up. Okay, Ravinder has his video on. Yeah, welcome back, Ravinder. He says, my Wi-Fi is weak. My internet is weak. Misha says, okay, who are you? There are three of you. Oh, sorry. Who is this question for? He says, for any of the panelists can answer this. Yeah, Misha says, can you just remove your background blur because your signing is not clear? Or if you can sign slowly, that's okay. So Ravinder says, this is for any disability. So on the 3rd of December, I was really interested earlier on when I was younger that, oh, that was a disability day and I want to be part of it. Sorry, we lost him.
Ah,
Okay, we have Yug here now. We'll take his question. Yug, carry on. Yug says, oh, I don't think I put my hand up. I've been spotlighted. Or he has his hand up now. Yeah, he has his hand up now. Yug, carry on. Yug, ask your question. Yug, we can see you. Yug. Yeah, go on with your question. So Yug says, my question is related to job. Misha says, first, can you tell us who this question is for? Yeah, Yug says any of the panelists can answer this. Rajesh, are you able to see me? Sunil, Navid, are you able to see me? Okay, so okay. So my family, when I say I want to go on my own, go out and do things on my own, my parents don't allow me. Because I then cannot communicate with them to, convince them. I don't have an interpreter access to talk to my parents as well. So I sometimes have to take my teacher's help, but it's not complete also the communication, right? And when we have conversations with family, relatives, it's not at all comfortable. I want to go out to do a job on my own and, be independent, but my parents don't allow. So, is there something that you can suggest how I can overcome this problem or a challenge? Rajesh wants to take the question. So, Rajesh says, yeah, just like you, I have seen a lot of deaf people facing the same challenge. Where are you from, Yug? I'm in Surat, in Gujarat. So, Rajesh says, I will be coming in to Surat quite soon. I can probably arrange for an interpreter for you to have a discussion with your family. So Yuk says, thank you very much for that support. Yeah, thank you. Misha says, are there any, Misha says, let me just, make it clear that if you can use the raise hand option, please, for us to know who wants to ask a question rather than putting your physical hand up, because that's difficult for us to check. Okay, we've got Ravinder, but with a different name now. Okay. All right. So my question is on 3rd December. Earlier, I was really interested and excited to be part of it. But now I don't really feel that excited because my teacher in school used to say, it's 3rd of December, the function event is there. Come on, let's all go together. So I used to be really interested and excited to go because I didn't have much awareness or information at that point in time because speech was used in school and everywhere. Even in the event, a lot of people were just speaking about the event. So I didn't have access or anything. But now, since I have ISL, I see what is happening. And I see the community is slightly, shrinking. I don't know why. There are a lot of people who are using hearing aids or cochlear implant and all of that. Uh, that's okay. That's good because the government is funding for it. But they're not funding for the ISL and sign language. Why? I'm not saying uh, they shouldn't be funding for the other aids and technology. So, we've got in the law which says you should not kill animals or you should not endangered animals and tigers, for example, should not be killed and all of that. Similarly, we need to save our language. We should not be deprived of our right to our sign language. How do you think we should be approaching that as an advocacy point? Sunil would like to take that question, I think. So Sunil says, what's your name? Can you just tell me? Okay, that's his sign name. My name is, I'm from Maharashtra. This is a place next to Nagpur. Yeah, maybe about an hour from Nagpur. I'm really surprised that you know a lot of information, that because of, cochlear implants and all of that, the deaf community itself is shrinking, which uses sign language. Okay, let me talk about Denmark, actually. The government supports use of sign language and use of bilingual education. In right from 1990. Denmark was really famous at that point in time because of the complete government support. But since the introduction of cochlear implant, the government has supported that and funded for it as well. And a lot of speech therapy and speech usage has increased. So the government has funded for both, cochlear implant and sign language. This is 40 years ago, right? But now, 40 years later, you see there are no deaf associations. There are no people gathering together, deaf people gathering together to meet and talk in sign language. Okay? Because there is an informed choice. Okay? It is not like you should not use sign language. Everybody is allowed to make their own choices. Okay? That is wrong to say that, if you have a cochlear implant, you should not use sign language. Say, for example, my daughter, who's called a CODA, a child of deaf adults. Within the family, she can sign because she is signing to us all the time at home. But she has a double benefit because she's hearing, so she has a hearing language and she has a sign language as well. So, similarly, even if a deaf person has a cochlear implant, they should be allowed to use sign language. You know, so linguistic genocide is what is happening, and that shouldn't happen. So, I think that's a really good point that you bring up. Yeah. We should create more awareness and educate the teachers and the people involved here. I'm sorry, I think someone's at the door. All right, yes, somebody else is going to open the door. Right, so he has a additional point. So he says whether it is cochlear implant, hearing aids, or sign language, use of sign language. In Goa, I attended a Purple Fest, and where we talked about a lot of case studies also, which were put up about the positives and the negatives of all of these three options. And this is for parents to then make an informed choice if they have all of the information being provided to them. And that's for the parents to decide. But when information is not provided completely, then that becomes a problem for parents to make the right choices. So Sunil says, yes, as part of our AIFT, which is the All India Federation of the Deaf, we will be working on that soon. Thank you. So Rajit says, just to add to what Sunil has said, yes, we do see a rise in the cochlear implant surgeries happening. But the people who are doing that, they are not looking at the success of the users of ISL. There are a lot of success stories there as well. They are not aware of it. They're only looking at the success stories of the use of cochlear implant or hearing aid. Because if they then are aware of the success within ISL also, that is when they will be able to appreciate and see that there is a balance and informed choices. So they don't have the awareness. Say, for example, I'll say Sunil is a very successful deaf person using ISL. The deaf person is probably looking at it and like, yeah, okay, Sunil is doing really great, but he does not tell his parents about it or the family about it. So the hearing people don't know. So the deaf people themselves, I urge them to, share such information with the parents. Let me just add to that, Sunil says that when they are, making their families who are hearing more aware about all of this, they should be also adding to the point that, he's an ISL user. He doesn't have a cochlear implant or another device to help him hear. These things will help. Okay, thank you so much for that. We still have more people waiting to ask their question. Okay, great. Thank you for taking my question, giving me the opportunity. I have a question. I am a teacher, actually, but in 11th and 12th, I did not. I'm a B.Ed teacher, right? But then the curriculum had a lot more information about the year and the use of hearing aids, and everything was just focused on hearing alone. The language, the importance of language was not there. So I think that needs to change. What do you have to say about that? Sunil says, yes, so it has got to do with the people on top, the people making decisions. They are not aware, right? And the people that you are going to, taking your concerns, they are probably not the decision makers, and they are like saying, okay, the other person has done it, it's the higher official. So it's a lack of awareness at all levels of management and decision making stages. So I think that we need to advocate for. Another thing, just to add, so when I go to do my degree, my final year, deaf people, there is a blind person. Sorry, I think her internet is bad, so can't see her question. Who is that 123456 who has their name as 123456 screen name? Okay, we have somebody else on screen. Can you please spotlight the person with the screen name 123456, please? Right. Okay, great. I have seen Mr. Rajesh posting so many videos through the MBM channel. Thank you so much. So I want to talk about, I had a hearing aid and I learned to, speak because of lip speech therapy. I was able to speak a bit, but my speech was not really good. And I went into an inclusive school. So from classes 1 to 7, I was really finding it very difficult to understand what the teacher was saying in classroom. And I felt really bad. I was not learning much there. And when I wanted to learn more, so for example, math, I wanted to do math, and but I was making a lot of mistakes because I couldn't understand what was being taught. So then I took up arts. And then I was thinking so after my 12th, I was thinking of a college. And then my sister, who was hearing, she would come along with me, and she mentioned that I was deaf, and they were not using sign language. That's what they told us, in the college, that you will have to use written language to communicate. So my percentages were 70, 73. And now I'm in semester 4, I got 74%. So the teacher said that, for a particular foundation where they were looking for people for jobs, they wanted someone who could speak and hear, a telephone operator, for example. So I couldn't get that opportunity. So that was a difficult thing. Misha says, I'm sorry. If you can just come to your question, please. I think because we don't have much time and there are a lot of people who still are waiting to ask a question. So he says, I'm finding it very difficult to get a job because I'm deaf. There are a lot of hearing people who are getting the opportunities. So Misha says, I'm sorry. We are having a lot of other people waiting for questions. So he says, my name is Mujib Khan. Yeah. Thank you. Are there anybody hearing person who wants to ask a question? We've had a lot of questions from the deaf audience. Is there a hearing person who wants to ask a question? If not, then I think we will have to end this session soon. Harit, over to you. Great. So we're almost at the end of the session. I know there are a lot more questions that people are waiting to ask. And this is the reason, we want to have this session where, we don't want that divide of one disability versus the other disability and different groups. We need to have an inclusive space where all these questions, these concerns can be addressed and talking about. So I really, really want to thank all of the panelists once again for your time and all of the people in the background who have helped us carry on this Zoom session really seamlessly, and the interpreters also for making this accessible. Thank you so much to all of them, and it's a great teamwork. So great work, great job. I hope to see you all again, panelists. Thank you very much, and the audience as well. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.